Good afternoon. Notice of a public meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, will convene a regular meeting on November 15 at 5 p.m. in the City Commission chambers located on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall, Old Federal Building, located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Mayor, it is 5:02. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
At this time, Commissioner Gowan has joined the meeting virtually.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
Next
Looks like
item.
we're missing just Commissioner Tetra and Commissioner Cardenas.
Yes, sir. We have invocation.
Let's all stand as we pray and remain standing afterwards for the pledge. Father God, we love you. We thank you, Lord, for your law because we know that your law is for our good. Lord, because this whole thing called earth is to create the kind of companions that you want to spend eternity with. And Lord, help each of us to be those kind of companions. Draw our hearts to you, Lord God. Father God, we lift up all of our new leaders in this nation, those we voted for and those we didn't. Lord, we ask you to draw each one of their hearts to you, destroy any deceptions in them, and release your revelation to each one of them. And we ask the same thing for each of us here. We ask you to lead and guide our mayor, our commissioners here tonight, and everybody that's presenting anything for the very best for the city of Brownsville. And Lord, we thank you for all of these things in the name of Jesus Christ. And now we'll have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has already been spoken. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Pledge allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state.
Next item, we have proclamations. First proclamation is proclamation honoring and recognizing Michael Slater.
Commissioner Cowan is, there you are. Come on up. Or you can run up, whichever you prefer.
So this is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing and honoring Michael Slater. Whereas Michael John Slater, an electrical manufacturing engineer and global strategy manager, has been a cross-country coach since 2008 and a school board member at St. Joseph Academy, and has had the pleasure to mentor hundreds of athletes throughout the years, including his two sons, Michael, class of 2014, and David, class of 2016. And whereas Coach Slater began recording his miles at the age of 14 when his parents gave him a Runner's World logbook. He began recording his miles since February 23rd, 1981, and by the end of that year, he had trekked more than 1,000 miles. While in high school in 1981, he had maintained meticulous records throughout the years, only missing 8 days of running since 1985. He currently owns one of the longest documented running streaks in the world, according to Streak Runners International Incorporated, at 21 years, 40 consecutive days. He ranks as the number 95 male for running at least 1 mile per day and is unofficially on the top extremely few in the world for running at least 5 kilometers or 3.1 miles per day. The last day he missed was the 9/11/2001 date, where his duties at work did not allow him to run on that tragic day in U.S. history. And whereas Coach Slater has run numerous 5K and 10K events, two of his longest races were the Bobby Krim 10 miles in Flint, Michigan, and the River Corridor Classic, a half marathon, and a 5K in Slater's Dayton, Ohio hometown. Due to that, his job at times requires him to travel. It allowed him to trek miles in other countries such as Portugal, Spain, Brazil, Argentina, and Canada, and several thousand of those miles occurred in Mexico, which he ran a 5K in Matamoros, Tamaulipas. And whereas running 100,000 miles is an accomplishment that very few individuals in the world have reached, and it is equivalent in distance to 4 times around the Earth at its equator, or running almost 7 miles per day, every day, over 40 years. Additionally, he has planned for several years to accomplish this milestone right here at St. Joseph Academy to express his profound gratitude for the opportunities given to him by the faculty and administration. And whereas he is eternally grateful for all the support he has received throughout the years, especially from his loving family and fellow coworkers, and he dedicated his final 2 laps to his deceased father, who was a source of inspiration and a big St. Joseph Academy fan and supporter. And now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city, and on behalf of all our citizens, do hereby recognize and honor Michael John Slater for his achievement and support him as he has accomplished his lifelong dream. Done on this, the 15th day of November, signed the City Commission.
Congratulations. If you'd like to address the commission, please feel free. There's a podium right behind you. Oh, Monica wants to take a photo. Thank you.
I'll say a word or two. Honorable Mayor, City Commissioners, thank you very much for this special, very special recognition. It's an honor, and I'm humbled to have received it, and it's something that's been in the works for many, many years. And as you know, many long-term endeavors, they require a strong team effort, and I most certainly had that throughout all the years. And I'd just like to take a moment to recognize some of the very special team members that I had along with me throughout my journey. So first, I'd like to thank my wife, my 2 sons, my mother, my brother, extended family, for the inspiration that they provided throughout all the years. As a matter of fact, my mother and my brother made the trip down from Dayton, Ohio. They were at the track when I finished the 2 laps. They were there to embrace me when I finished, and I still get goosebumps thinking about that now. I'd like to thank the St. Joseph family, cross-country coaches Teddy Lopez, Louis Tijerina, AD Tino Villarreal, Michael Motel, for giving me the opportunity and the privilege to be a coach at St. Joseph Academy. And to the student athletes themselves who've motivated me throughout all the years, essentially where I've run the last 40,000 miles of my journey with them on or around the St. Joseph campus. For my employer, Aptiv, who has supported my running efforts throughout all these years and who has provided the flexibility to have a very balanced work life. And that's enabled me to be able to do this. That's quite essential. They surprised me a little bit because some of the members were actually at the event itself. They told me the next day they wanted me to go into Matamoros and help them organize an event. And then I found out after the event that they actually were going to recognize me for having achieved 100,000 miles the night before. I guess one more thing that I would like to say, as some of you know, I'm not from here. I came down here in 1988 as I was finishing college as an engineering co-op student. Supposedly I was coming down for 3 months to work in Matamoros, Mexico. 34 years later, I'm still here, which means that I really never left. And there's a reason for that. I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio, and that's a place that I truly love. So much so that I wrote a book about growing up there, and I dedicated it to my parents for their 50th wedding anniversary. But as much as I like to say that Dayton, Ohio was my birthplace, equally, if not more so, I feel the same in saying that Brownsville, Texas is my hometown. And most recently, that came to light when some of the publicity came out after my event. The list came out, the 100,000-mile list, and Brownsville, Texas was listed next to my name. And that gave me a great sense of pride. And I just want to tell all of you as I move ahead, whether as a representative of St. Joseph Academy as a coach or pursuing my own personal endeavors, that I pledge to be the best ambassador that I can be through my actions and through my accomplishments out of dignity and respect for our great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proclamation, we have proclamation designating November 13 to 19, 2022 as Transgender Awareness Week in the city of Brownsville.
Commissioner De Los Santos?
Thank you. If we have anyone from the community who plans to receive the proclamation, please feel free to come on up. That's trans community, LGBTQ community, or even allies to the community. Don't be shy. A proclamation from the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating November 13th through 19th as Transgender Awareness Week. Whereas each year between November 13th and 19th, people and organizations around the country participate in Transgender Awareness Week to help raise the visibility about transgender people and address issues members of the community, to address issues members of the community face. And whereas Transgender Awareness Week is a week when transgender people and their allies take action to bring attention to the LGBTQ community by educating the public about who transgender people are, sharing stories and experiences, and advancing advocacy around issues of prejudice and discrimination that affect the transgender community. And whereas more than 1.6 million people in America identify as transgender, and violence against the transgender community continues to rise at disproportionate and alarming rates in recent years. And whereas the LGBTQ plus individuals, like all people within our jurisdiction, have a right to live without fear of discrimination, harassment, and persecution, regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, or gender expression. And whereas the city of Brownsville has consistently grown stronger through inclusion, justice, and love for all, and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all of its citizens. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city, and on behalf of all our citizens, do hereby designate November 13th through 19th as Transgender Awareness Week, and further call upon the residents of Brownsville to join us in recognizing the importance of acceptance and equality for all in our community as we continue to fight to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and to celebrate the great diversity of this city. Done this 15th day of November 2022, signed by the mayor and city commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank God. The heater's on. And if I could say a word, Mayor, on that
Absolutely.
proclamation.
Please.
Good evening, mayors and commissioners. My name is Brian Martinez. I'm the chairman of the Brownsville LGBTQ plus task force. Just want to express our gratitude today for this proclamation. I know that the city of Brownsville has continued to grow stronger through inclusion in our community, and that itself means the world to us. So just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We continue to see the support, and we feel the support from the city. So on behalf of the LGBTQ task force, thank you for the proclamation today.
Thank you, Brian. And if I could just say a couple of words also. It's with a great deal of pride we pass this today because this is the first time the city of Brownsville has passed a proclamation recognizing Transgender Awareness Week. And we know it's the work of individuals like yourself, the LGBTQ Task Force, but even the larger LGBTQ community that has made this possible. We know of the incidents that occurred in our community before that led to members of the LGBTQ community first lobbying the commission for the creation of a task force. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them. And especially, we know one of the biggest instances was the disappearance of Kimberly Avila from our community. And I'm very proud to say, as the first openly gay city commissioner serving, I've had the pleasure of sitting down with our police department annually for updates on this and to ensure the family is kept up to speed on anything and everything that develops with regard to that, because all of the issues that affect the LGBTQ community are very, very important, as are the issues that affect all other members of our community, because it is about equality. And whether it's the veterans that we're working on initiatives for, our special needs community, our LGBTQ community, our elderly, our youth, whatever, this is about equality and inclusion for everybody. And this is just one more great example of that. So thank you guys for everything each and every one of you is doing out there, and to all the allies we have.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next item, we have public comment.
I believe Helen wanted to address us prior to that.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Commission. I did want to make a few announcements that we have with regard to manager and director level positions for the city of Brownsville. We have our own Yolanda Galarza. She has been with the city of Brownsville since 2003, having worked through the building department and also city secretary. She will be our new city secretary for the city of Brownsville. A graduate of Porter High School with a certification of Texas registered municipal clerk, and also enrolled in South Texas College pursuing a degree in public administration. So welcome, Yoli. We have also Manuel Chacon. You want to stand up? Manuel is our new communications and marketing director, so he'll be working with many of our community members and partners. More than 15 years of experience, holds a master's degree in public policy and from UT Brownsville, right? And a BA in communications from Texas A&M University at Kingsville. And so we're welcoming him to our community and look forward to all the great press and news that we'll have communicated to our community. Thank you, Mr. Chacon. And last but not least, we have Roger Rogelio Chanes. Roger, MBA, he's our intergovernmental relations manager. He holds an MBA and an MPA and a BA from marketing from UT RGV. He comes with experience at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, having worked with many elected officials on state level and regional level, and also international campaigns. So welcome, Roger, to the city. That's all.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item, we have public comment. We have 4. Mr. Lawrence Fernandez.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak before you. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but a few short moments from now, you're going to have our fine and capable public servant, Damaris, issuing a subject to you that is going to be so very grand. And I can't help it as a historian hearkening back to 1905 when Clara Driscoll approached a body just like yours. It was a San Antonio commission. And then there was another architect, Robert Hugman, in 1929 that addressed that same body. And those 2 projects respectively were the Alamo and the Riverwalk. The project that Damaris is going to hand over to you is so incredibly beautiful and so much potential for Brownsville. I just hope that you embrace it. I hope that you give that particular grande dame the attention that she deserves. She wants to go to the ball. She wants a dress. She wants dignity. Give her that Cinderella dress and launch her forward. For those of you that may not know what I'm talking about, it is the La Posada Park project. I'm a little short of breath, but let me just give you the basics from my standpoint. There is a biosphere there that is adjacent to the proposed park that is unique in the world. And it's got so much potential so far as bringing comfort and joy to our citizens and drawing tourism, as I alluded to the San Antonio Riverwalk, of what we are capable of receiving back from this Grand Dame. She will give us love in return. Please give her a perpetual launching into life. It is so important for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gene.
Next, we have Sarah Hinojosa Parsons. Well, just for the record, she just wants to register her opinion. Okay?
Thank you.
The next one, we have Erasmo Castro. He joined the meeting virtually.
Mr. Costa, are you there?
Mr. Erasmo Castro? Next, we have Susan Rubalcaba.
Is she virtual as well? I can't see the screen, so I don't know if they're online or not. No? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Next item, we have work sessions. Item number 1, presentation on findings of La Posada Park, community engagement, and to seek city commission guidance as to create a La Posada Park task force to plan and fundraise for future site development.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. My name is Damaris McGlone. I am the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Brownsville. And with me, I'm sure this is a very familiar face, we have Ms. Eva Garcia. She is a Parks Advisory Board member. And today we are here on behalf of many stakeholders and lovers of this La Posada Park and Montezuma Cypress Preserve to get some feedback from you all on this park. There it is.
So a little bit of recent history. This is a very unique area in our community. It has the largest grove of Montezuma cypresses north of Mexico or in the US here. And so we've had, there was a fire to the house. We have cleared the overgrowth in the Resaca, which had been dry for some years. There was a lot of volunteer engagement from Keep Brownsville Beautiful to other stakeholders from the colleges and the university. And so currently, Mr. Fernandez is leading the reforestation of the Montezuma cypress. We have some grant funds to restore and have partially restored the Jagoo Bridge. And so we continue to work on reintroducing water with stakeholders from PUB and the state forester and involving, Texas Historical Landmark with that historic bridge over the Resaca. And so we're currently have been working on a building assessment and visioning. So basically years of engagement, years of work from the Parks Department, but also from our stakeholders and from the community around the area.
And so we engaged Megamorphosis to do the building assessment. There's an old Head Start building on the property, and to see if it was worth salvaging or if it would be necessary to demolish. As part of that scope of work, there was a schematic design study, and this is option 1 and option 2. They're very similar. Most of the components are the same, just kind of reorganizing the layout. In addition to that project scope, there was a community engagement for La Posada. And then we did an online survey and we got 282 respondents. So, which for us that's really good for a survey. 18% of those had a disability or special need. 80% were interested in having intergenerational programming. And 51% lived nearby La Posada Park, and that was within a 2-mile radius. And just to note, these are just renderings. This is not a final decision, a final concept. It was just to help spark the vision of what this park could be. And so on August 11th, We had a live community engagement event where we had stargazing from Star Society. We had the Tu Salud Si Cuenta participate with Yoga in the Park. We also had the Brownsville Farmers Market activated. It was a really fun, fantastic way to activate this space.
So as she mentioned, we had a lot of responses from the surveying. And I think one of the main takeaways was that the community around the area, or the responses was people want to enjoy nature, and especially in urban areas. And so this park provides that opportunity for, us in our urban spaces, and Southmost is one of the poorest and densest areas in our community, to give them a space where they can enjoy nature and exercise. Excuse me.
Those were the top two respondents. And then the other two is just family gatherings and to attend an event. And those were the most, out of all parks that we have, they were visited. We mentioned that.
Right, so most of them lived in the La Posada area, which we thought was really good. Walking trails was one of the other things that was a huge draw for the area. And so we do have some bicycle and pedestrian facilities coming into the area. But I think a lot of that pristine habitat along the Resaca is where they would like to have some walking trails. Restrooms are very important for the public space, playground for kids, and then again, nature viewing came up again, and then exercise equipment, nature play, the dog park, which the pop-up dog park during the public engagement was very successful, and then community gardens, but we have an urban farm there, and so continuing that programming.
And then, so as part of, so that was the online survey engagement. So the in-person also found some similar findings. And part of that was to fill and enlarge the Resaca, have recreation amenities like paddle boats or canoeing. They said that dark sky lighting was important, but also to have shade, obviously, drinking fountains, restrooms, the typical park amenities. Connect to the Southmost Nature Trail, which luckily it is a terminus of the Southmost Nature Trail. Adding paths and paved trails, art and nature and bird blinds, observation, overlooks, habitat for birds and butterflies. We are going for a Bird City, Texas designation. This is a pristine park for that. And as well as some other things. And of course, restoring the historic structures on site. And then of course, security because of the biosphere that Mr. Eugene Fernandez referenced and this gem that we have and security cameras, and to really restrict the ATVs that seem to, riders that love to use this space and we're constantly battling. We also engaged Jesse Miller. He used this park as an assignment for his TSC students, or our future professionals, as I like to say. And so here's just an example of some of their designs. And I think in your packet, there's the full renditions of what they did, or at least part of it. And so we're even engaging our young future professionals and envisioning what this space could be. And so also along with this is the budget. So it was really important when we spoke about, I think this was June 2020, that this would be a phased approach in order to, we understand the fiscal position that the city is in. We also understand that this is an asset that's been near and dear to the heart of Brownsville. And so we wanted to look at that. And we did a high end and a low end, and really also they estimated with the volatile market in mind, not knowing the cost of goods and the delays for such things. So it is a high end pricing. So for this, they did the phases between now and 2026. The low end is would be 3.8 million. The high end would be 5.7. Again, this is an entire wish list. And of course, this could be edited as, further we go down the line on that. And just another thing that we have is really looking at is what grant opportunities are out there? Is there fundraising opportunities? Is there, we have an MOU with Kaboom, who we have shared about this project. And so really looking to our partners and resources, what we can do. And so I'll let Eva end it with this.
So as a Parks Advisory Board member and a stakeholder in the community, we're basically seeking guidance to see how we proceed with the next phase. You saw that there were several phases, and there are different funding opportunities, like Texas Parks and Wildlife Department has some grants for some of this kind of developments. She mentioned the Kaboom Partnership. And so we've thought about maybe creating a task force, since there are some resaca considerations and needing to do some studies for environmental and historical assessments and clearance, and then continuing with the development and seeking funds for each development phase of the park.
And then possibly budgeting for any matching funds that grants would require as
Of
well.
course, yes.
So at the community engagement event, many people came up to us. It's like, will the commission create a task force? And I said, well, let's go ask them. And so that's what we bring for you today, is to get your feedback on, shall we create a task force? Is the timing right? Is this something that we need to maybe put off a little bit? We really just want to be able to know what's the next steps and keep moving forward, or do we phase it out even longer than a 5-year plan?
I think for myself, I think a task force is an excellent idea for this, because this is the type of project that warrants focus. And if you just ask the Parks and Rec Advisory Board to do that, you're not going to get the level of focus that this warrants. And I grew up in this area. My dad still lives out there on Southmost and Monsies, right at the corner of La Posada. Is there anything in these plans, I know this is based on funding that's available, is there anything in these plans that's missing for lack of funding right now? Or have we captured everything that the community was telling us that they need in this area?
I imagine there's missing things. I think we'll need to do further community engagement that we'll want the stakeholders to participate in. But I think it's a really good start that we did some investigative research, if you will. And right now we have zero budget, right? There's no allocated funds for this park. And so it just, aside from the basic M&O of mowing every so often, and actually really a lot of volunteer work has gone into the maintenance of this. So I anticipate that there could be unexpected things, such as, like, if we were to, let's say we didn't plan to restore a house. So if that came out of this, that was something that we wanted to do, that's not in this projection.
And I think to your point, a task force versus just keeping it in the Parks Advisory Board, right? Because we have the resaca and other factors, you know, having someone from another department or from other stakeholder agencies like PUB, that would be very helpful in considering all of the necessary coordination that we're going to have, and continuing to that, so that development is sustainable, maybe low maintenance, or incorporates the type of partnerships we need for sustainable programming. So.
And then Mr. Gene Fernandez did email me a recommendation list, so I'm sure he might have emailed it to you already, but if not, I can forward it along as well.
Thank you.
So I have some comments. I first went to this space, probably 8 or 9 years ago, and was stunned by just its beauty. And every time I go back, the further development of the gardens and the spaces there just take my breath away. It was really joyful to watch all the people participate in the public comment session the day that I was there with the farmers market. And I think the task force is also the next step with the time frame, because I think that it's free to create a task force, but I also think we should task that task force with coming back within, let's say, 6 or 8 months or something concrete, rather than just having it go on and on. I think there's a sweet spot in planning. If you plan too long, you tend to find more problems and end up not doing it or really reduce it, as opposed to if you don't plan enough, you're not prepared. But we need to find that sweet spot of where to place that plan, and also be ready for funding grant sources that come along. If we don't have a ready-made plan on the shelf, then we may miss funding opportunities. So I think it's a very good idea to do a task force with instructions to return to the commission with results, let's say 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever, but less than a year, so that we can look at it again.
So hopefully Parks will come back with a recommendation or an agenda item for the commission to consider. And you guys who've had your hands on this, you give us a recommendation on how much time you think is appropriate for that task force to come back with a report.
Okay, we'll come back at December meeting with an action item. So if you guys could do your homework and think of task force members, and that way we could be ready to go. So like Commissioner Gowan said, that we can get a quick turnaround within this year, maybe by the end of the fiscal year.
And I think ideally, just to add, is having like, if one of the outcomes is a funding strategy, right? To have someone who can speak to that, where our limits kind of lie as far as seeking funding and leveraging other funds and providing match amounts. I think that'd be really helpful to the group. So let me know if you need any help.
I'd like to add, maybe it's a good idea. I don't know what stage to loop in BCIC to this for this project, because I think they would be open to looking at this. It's in their, scope of what they can do, right? And then I think I'd also like to get a handle on what the recurring costs would be for the city to properly fund the ongoing maintenance and operation of the park. Because I think right now we don't really cover our current park system, right? And so we need to build that into the bigger strategy on how to fully fund our park system.
Absolutely.
And to just add on to that, per population, we're still underparked. In other words, we do not have enough park space for the population that we have. So we definitely need to loop in BCIC as a partner, not just for the creation, but also to consider maintaining something that's such a gem.
Yeah, we can definitely reach out to them, and perhaps you all can present to them, right?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
as you presented to our commission, to their board.
Yeah, and I agree with that level of open space deficit. I think some of the work that the Parks Department has been really good about is not only, trying to look for open spaces for our community and our residents, but also how to connect those spaces to one another. And I just want to give a shout out to our Parks and Recreation Department for doing a phenomenal job on all of the upkeep, maintenance, programming of these public spaces. And, just thank you to you as a department director, but also just to the commission for providing that support.
I have to say they do an amazing job for as little as we have compared to local standards. We are far and beyond the performance of in the Valley. I'm going to put it out there. So our team does a great job. Thank you all. We'll come back with an item.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As the district commissioner, I just want to thank the two of you because y'all have put a lot of attention to that area, which is much needed. Eva, thanks to the MPO for doing the sidewalk there on behind Garza. Every time I drive by there's so many people. The next step is getting lighting. And so extending it over to this park, that's really what people who live in the area really wanted. They all like to walk, and as we've seen with that second phase, that we can do it in steps. Doesn't have to be done from one day to the other. It can be an evolving process, a fluid park that evolves over time and stuff. So thank you though for paying attention to that area. And on behalf of all the residents of La Posada and that area, thank you for preserving it.
It is one of my favorite parks in our whole system. It is a gem. It is a beauty. It is a reason why we are in the parks industry for a place like that. And Brownsville has it. It is amazing.
Thank you.
Next item, we have Flood Infrastructure Fund Study and Drainage Policy Public Comment Workshop.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Doro Garcia. I'm Interim Director for Engineering and Public Works. Today, I'll be sharing with you and our viewing audience the FIF study and the drainage policy update. This will be a very high-level overview. For a more detailed, in-depth view, we will be having a presentation this coming Thursday at the Southmost Library, November 17th, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. And we'll dig into the details. Without further ado, I'll present John Clint with Halfin Associates, who is one of the consultants.
Mayor Clint, I'm the office manager for 2018. The citizens of the state of Texas voted to dip into the rainy day fund that was created back about 20, 30 years ago to address major flooding concerns that hit the valley, hit parts of Houston and central Texas during some of these disasters that occurred in the late 2018, 19, and 20. And at that time, $793 million was allocated to the Texas Water Development Board to create several planning areas, study areas, and also do a bunch of construction projects. Out of that, about 480 has been allocated by the state. In 2020, Half Associates assisted the city of Brownsville with applying for 3 grants in which they applied for roughly $15 million and received about $47 million or 47% grant from those 3 applications. And this is the first project, which is a study for what's called the Huck area, and Ian Whitco will describe what a Huck area is. But without further ado, to get into more specifics, I'm going to introduce Ian Whitco, our Senior Project Manager for Water Resources.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. I think you all know me, but like John said, I'm Ann Whitco. I'm the Senior Water Resources Project Manager in our Brownsville office. And I'm going to give you just kind of a high-level overview of progress made to date on the Brownsville FIF study. Basically, a little preview to what we're going to talk about in more detail on at the Thursday public meeting that Doro mentioned. That meeting is going to be held at the Southmost Public Library from 4:30 to 6 p.m. So I hope that everyone's able to attend that. With me today is our project manager, Ryan Londine, who's overseeing all of the model development. He's not here with us in person. He's here virtually, though, listening in. He's available if there's any questions on any of the detailed modeling efforts. And then I also have Elmer Hinojosa and Grimaldo Carrillo, who are sitting here behind me. They're 2 of our graduate engineers in our McAllen office. Probably really the most important members of our team. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, getting the modeling effort underway and getting all the data in the models. So getting right into it, in the interest of your time, our study encompasses a 366 square mile area that extends from Los Indios on the western side, all the way over to the Port Isabel region on the eastern boundary. From north to south, it covers the area between Los Fresnos and Brownsville, but excluding the area south of the IBWC levee. As John mentioned, the majority of the study is being funded through the Texas Water Development Board FIF grant, with the city of Brownsville serving as the project sponsor. And then we have several key stakeholders that are listed on this slide that are all within the study area that we're actively working with to coordinate the project. Which one's advances this? Oh, this one. Oh, both of them do it. All right, cool. So we kicked the project off in early 2022, beginning with a data collection effort to facilitate development of flood models across the study area. The most currently available LiDAR topographic data and land use data sets were downloaded from state and national data repositories, and then supplemented with structured data, including weir structures, culverts, and bridges that were able to be extracted from previous modeling efforts that have occurred over the last 10 to 15 years. Where data gaps existed or in areas where we felt we needed some additional information or additional level of detail, we sent out survey crews to collect that additional information. And the general locations of those areas where we collected information are denoted by those green stars on the map that's displayed on the screen. In total, our team collected over 193 structures, in addition to several hundred cross-sections that help us define the channel geometry and better understand how flows travel through these drainage systems in the watershed area. The other key component of our early efforts and something that is ongoing throughout the entire course of the study is coordination with all those local stakeholders that I mentioned on the previous slide. This allows us to really understand the critical areas in the watershed with respect to known drainage issues, and to make sure we're aware of other ongoing studies and efforts to develop flood mitigation projects so that we're not duplicating anybody else's efforts and we're making the best use of the resources available for this study. In conjunction with our data collection efforts, our team kicked off our modeling phase by performing a 2-dimensional rapid assessment of the entire watershed. So basically what this means is that we took some of those key watershed characteristics, such as topographic and land use data, and they get converted into like a gridded network that allows us to calculate stormwater flows and resulting water surface elevations based on various rainfall inputs into the model. This step allows for a quick and high-level assessment of the watershed and lets us identify where those problem areas are going to be in advance of the time it takes to develop the really detailed model with all the structure data and all the higher, the more refined data inputs. And then based on that information, we can take that and use our resources most effectively to get data and information in those areas that are most critical to flood risk. As culvert information has become available through the surveying efforts, they're put into the model, and we've developed an existing condition flood mapping product across the entire watershed, from which we've developed a hotspot map, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a couple slides. It allows us to understand those key areas in the watershed where flooding intersects populated areas, because ultimately that's really what we're concerned about, is where is flooding intersecting with where people are living and working. So we just finished up doing the hotspot analysis. We defined 15 areas right now, that we're calling hotspot areas, 10 of which that we're going to study in further detail and ultimately develop flood projects for. And so these are ranked areas. Ideally, we'd take the top 10, but we did an additional 5 in case one of those areas in the top 10 gets removed for whatever reason. There's another project going on, or we get additional information that ends up removing it from the list. So how do we actually rank those hotspot areas? So we begin by looking at our 100-year floodplain. And so this is the area that is predicted to flood based on 100-year rainfall amounts. And we see where those intersect with the locations of buildings within the watershed. And we get that data, the building data from Texas Water Development Board. Each structure that intersects with the floodplain is assigned a flood risk rating of low, moderate, or high. And that's based on the expected flood depth that's observed at that location. So those structures where it's predicted that 12 inches or more of rainfall is observed during a flood event, those are given a high risk rating. Those that fall in the 6 to 12 inch category are given a moderate level of flood risk. And then with 6 inches and below, those are given low risk. So it might sound weird to think that, you could have a structure with 6 inches of flooding observed and it's giving it a low risk. But the reason for that is that we're assuming that any building in the floodplain would have a minimum 6-inch concrete slab that the building is built on. So 6 inches of flood depth over natural ground doesn't translate to, flooding inside the building. And this is an important point to bring up for the folks that are going to be presenting the floodplain management ordinance after me. So I just wanted to draw attention to that. So upon rating all of the flooded structures within that 100-year floodplain across that entire watershed, a heat map was developed based on the density of high and moderate risk structures, and that's what you're looking at right here. So those red areas are where there's a higher density of structures that are at moderate to high flood risk. Yellow is still high, but not as elevated. And then the rest of the area is a relatively lower risk. So you might notice that within Brownsville, you can see a lot of areas that I know a lot of us that live here locally are familiar with that flood often. The Four Corners area, Cameron Park, portions of Brownsville Country Club. Those are all being picked up by the heat map. Additionally, we're seeing some hot spots in the Los Fresnos area, Rancho Viejo, and then a low-lying but very populated area northwest of Rancho Viejo. So these hotspots are broken down into 15 separate areas and ranked according to the total number of structures that experience high or moderate flooding. Like I mentioned, 10 are going to be included for a more detailed analysis, and we'll be working to develop mitigation projects to hopefully reduce that flood risk. And then we have 5 sort of backup projects in case any of those 10 get removed. Unfortunately, I don't have time to present all 15 of these areas today. I think that those 15 areas were provided in maps in your handouts. But we will be going into all of those in more detail during our public meeting on Thursday. So I encourage all of you to attend if you'd like more information there. And so while I can't show all 15, I will show you the number one flood risk area that was ranked based on having the most structures within the floodplain. I'm sure it comes as no surprise to many of you that this is the Four Corners area by Boca Chica and Highway 48. So that area, it's defined by that orange line, and within that is 990 total structures that were identified as having either moderate or high flood risk. So this is obviously going to be one of our main priority areas that we're going to look at. I know it's been an area of concern for many folks in this room, and I've had conversations with many about this area in the past, so that's something we're really going to be focusing on. So in the interest of time, this is all I'm going to present right now, but I will emphasize again that we're going to be going into a lot more detail on Thursday, and I hope you all can join us for that meeting. From here, I'm going to hand it on over for an update on the flood management ordinance. Right?
I don't know if y'all have any questions on the study itself.
I don't have any questions on the study. I won't be able to attend on Thursday. I'm out of town Thursday and Friday of this week. But this is very telling. We all know the flooding problems we have in the city. And of course, we see all the red spots are inside the Brownsville city limit. So that's definitely a concern. And I know we've had conversations with Engineering Public Works in the past. It's good to see that you guys are looking at this. And like we've talked about, one of the things we'd like to see, or that I'd like to see, is also raising the development standards so that as we address these hot spots and
You'll be
fix
hearing that
them,
right now.
that's good. That way we're not creating new flooding problems behind the fixes that we're putting in place. So thank you guys for the attention on this.
Any other questions on the study?
Dodo, will you be recording the session for those who cannot attend?
We can definitely arrange that.
Please.
So we'll continue. If there's no more questions, I'll continue to the drainage policy updates, and I'll let Mr. Jacob Castañeda with SWG lead us with that presentation.
Hello, good evening. So first off, against the old policy, we are going to be changing the IDEF coefficients need to be updated to match Cameron County's intensity design duration coefficients. This update is needed in order to correctly obtain the rainfall intensity, which in turn helps determine the storm water runoff. For storm frequencies, the minimum for minor systems such as subdivisions, a minimum 50-year frequency interval shall be assumed. The existing frequency that was for minor systems was a minimum of 5 years. So this is going to be a big jump. And stormwater still be released at a 10-year rate. So that way we're not overcapacitating our channels that we have going on. If the system is determined to be in a flood-prone area, a 100-year frequency may be used for analysis and design of the storm system, which will be deemed necessary by the city of engineer. The drainage report requirements, the minimum drainage report requirements by the city of Brownsville will be followed. The existing, and they're just a little bit minor updates to it. We will have like a cover sheet, the index, drainage report narrative write-up, project location map, topographical map with runoff patterns, sea values, rainoff intensity, floodplain, soil survey, set of plans, make sure it's sealed by the engineer, proposed conditions, and a flood zone with the description. Clearances from utilities. Currently, there are no ordinances to the spacings of the pipes themselves from other utilities. So for an example, a horizontal clearance provided could be around 5 feet each side, water or sewer. And if the minimum horizontal clearance shall be 60 inches for storm drains, inlets, or other appurtenances, the minimum horizontal clearance shall be 36 inches, 3 feet for storm drain manholes. For storm drains smaller than 42 inches with a depth cover 6 feet or less, the minimum vertical clearance will be 12 inches above the storm drain and 18 inches below, as seen in example 1 vertical clearance. And for example 2 vertical clearance It will just, if it's a bigger pipe, the clearances will jump up 1/2 foot each side. Leachate, so currently there's no policies on how we're runoff from, I guess, the dumpsters and stuff like that just go straight into our storm systems. And the debris from the dumpsters flow untreated to our stormwater drainage system and directly into our local resacas, rivers, creeks. These pollutants have the potential to destroy sensitive ecosystems, harm aquatic life habitats, and pollute recreational sites and the drinking water supplies in Brownsville and the surrounding communities. So with this, the proposed is to place dumpsters in covered areas that connect directly into the sanitary sewer system or away from areas from the stormwater drainage system, so it has no way of falling into it. Here is a comparison of the calculations from the stormwater runoff. In this comparison, rainfall intensity, time of concentration, and stormwater runoff were analyzed for a 15-acre undeveloped land using a 50-year frequency. And as you can see, for the old policy, the EBD coefficients vary greatly or differentiate from the new policy a lot. There's a big difference on that one. So updating that would be the best thing to do. Time of concentration, there's 2 different formulas used, one from the old policy and then against our new one. Time of concentration had a 10-minute difference from the old policy to the new policy using the coefficients that are now updated to what we need to have them at. Intensity varied. Whenever inputting the intensity formula, it was like a 0.5, 0.9 difference in inches an hour. And in putting it into the rational formula, which is used for the stormwater runoff Q equals CIA, there was a 2.5 difference in CFS created from this. So not much of a difference, but there's a difference to where it can play a huge role.
I would like to add just a couple of things. A lot of the updates on this policy are items that we've been doing by practice, but we don't have policies for them. As we have developers from out of town come in, they want to see something on our documents similar to our UDC. So this goes in line with part of our UDC. When we did our UDC update, there were sections in there that call out our drainage policy. So updating this policy, you're starting to see a lot of the things that we've already done, but we didn't have in a written formal policy. There were just good engineering practices. A lot of the intensities that are being updated now go in line with state NOAA requirements that are published on a yearly basis by weather sources that give us up-to-date rainfall events. So they're more accurate and in tune with current rainfall activity that we're having, not with outdated information that we have. The biggest change is obviously going to be the storage capacity going from a 5-year event to a 50-year event. And in the workshops, we can go more into detail as to how much increased detention this is going to require for our developments. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
Well, just a comment. I like the direction that you guys are headed with the dumpsters. I know when I attended the TML conference, that was something that I looked at closely, the different ideas and solutions that are out there now for containing that. My question would be, for problems that we have today that probably would not automatically fall under new standards and ordinance, do we have a plan to tackle those? I know we can cite those business owners, of course, if their runoff is going into the water system.
Well, we do have a big portion of the city falls under the drainage district, number one. So it's, I'd say almost about 60 to 70% of it. So that's part of the reason why the city's policy was really not updated for many years, and just kind of the drainage district was where most of the current development was taking place. So the city relied on that a lot. That's why our policy was never updated. We felt that it was important to update it since we went through the whole UDC update and it called an actual policy. There's no sense in us having a policy that was written 20 years ago.
And when it comes to enforcement, since some of those fall under the irrigation district, does it fall on them or does it fall on us?
Very few irrigation districts allow us to discharge into their waterways.
No, and I'm sorry, my question is more if we've got business owners who are not properly containing their waste, and we're seeing runoff into those drainage districts which fall under those?
The city does have a task force or stormwater pollution prevention team that goes out and enforces those pollution issues that we have.
Perfect, thank you.
One suggestion is that for Thursday, if you really want, people's participation needs to be in layman's terms. A lot of this is even over my head. So if we go back a few slides, you said that there was no, for the utilities, right? And that you, I think, if I understood correctly, you want to have certain easements for the stormwater lines. Do you already have them existing, or are you gonna have to get a separate easement from where sewer and water is running? Like that part?
Most of this is just for the separation of lines for whenever we have repairs, that we don't run into issues where we have lines that are right next to each other. As far as the easement issue, the easements are dedicated based on new lines. If they're proposing new lines, will require new easements. But the easement requirements are not gonna change or not gonna get any bigger than what we already have in place. Our requirements for easements. We're not going to be requiring additional easements that are greater in size or width with this policy.
But then you have already you have lines for stormwater already existing in all the places that you need? Or are there areas where you don't have them?
No, there's areas that we don't have any. I mean, as usually for storm systems, it's whenever developers come in, they'll install new systems. So for those new systems, that's what this policy is for. Whenever those new systems are installed, these are our requirements or guidelines for easements, for separation of lines, spacing of manholes, and all of those items. It gives our design engineers a criteria that the city utilizes.
So in problem areas that are already developed out, like from the Four Corners, you had it going down to La Posada and then all the way up to, I don't remember where, but it was McDavid, I think. So all that area is already fully built out. How do you deal with it?
Most of those developments already have existing ways where the pipes are placed and easements in place. If they require upgrades, we'll try to work within that easement. If we do need additional easements, we would go into issues of purchasing additional easements. I can tell you for Four Corners, the case is really purchasing land for detention. It's not so much increasing the size of the pipes that are along the way.
But then is that what the Southmost Water Plain Park is for?
Correct. The Southmost Water Plain Park would be a detention pond to help alleviate some of the flooding that's taking place.
So is Cameron County Drainage District #1, because I think they would be, are they involved in this?
Yes,
too?
they're one of our partners.
And if I could add something, those clearances as well, they help with, so no leakage comes in. If there's a break in the pipe, they'll have a harder time to leak into the system. So they don't contaminate each other.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next item, we have consent agenda items.
You have any motions?
Can I pull one out, the number 12? And then, but I'll move to approve everything but 12, if we
All
can
right.
discuss it separately.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve everything and discuss item 12. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, item 12, Commissioner?
The one question I had is, and I think I mentioned it before during one of our private meetings, when we have these new areas that are being annexed along the way, how will that play into the, which district it falls into?
So we are required to submit a current city limit boundary map to the Census Bureau before we start the redistricting process. Unfortunately, our GIS maps are about 6 to 12 months behind. And so we don't have a current city limits map that was on file when we started the redistricting process. So those areas are not in the city, they're in the city limits, but they're not within our voting district boundaries yet. So hopefully before the next election, we'll have somebody here that can work on those GIS maps and modify our city district boundary map. We'll then submit that to the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau will then authorize us to modify our voting districts, and we'll probably just absorb those abutting areas into the districts that they fall within, because many of them are single-family residential, undeveloped subdivisions, so it won't affect population numbers, but that's our plan to move forward with that issue.
And there's no requirements to submit that and have it approved by a certain timeframe?
No, sir.
What would happen if we were annexing territory that actually abutted two districts simultaneously? How would you guys handle that?
So I think that comes into the way the annexation laws are now. It would have to be voluntary. So that's when developers come in and they just say, hey, we want to come into city proper. But in most cases, city's not going to be annexing property.
No, that I understand, but the question is, if it so happens it's on the outskirts of where two districts meet, then is that land going to be annexed to District A or District B?
I think we're
How is that
anticipating that in the case of Madera, and we're probably going to just split it down the middle per district. That would be.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any motions on item 12?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Next, we have items for individual consideration. Item number 1, consideration and action to award a contract to Half Associates for the professional engineering and survey services of the Los Tomates Regional Detention Pond and the Impala Pump Station improvements. The agreement is an independent contract for an on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, street drainage, improvements, and miscellaneous service projects for the city of Brownsville. QES-40-0620 for the amount of $1,204,900 for Los Tomates Regional Detention Pond and $260,485 for the Impala Pump Station improvements as budgeted.
I have a conflict of interest. I have filed a conflict of interest with the city secretary, and so I'll step out.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. The project that we're presenting today before is the Los Tomates area, shown here on the map. It's on the south side of Brownsville. It's near the Impala Pump area. It's right near the Los Tomates Bridge. Here's a more zoomed up picture. You can see the Los Tomates Bridge on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the area where we're proposing the regional detention ponds to help alleviate flooding in the Town Resaca area. This project is being funded through ARP, and the project itself is to help enhance the drainage along the Town Resaca area, which is the area from about a lot of the portion on West Brownsville, the downtown Brownsville area, and the university area. This will also help alleviate some of the flooding by removing the water that's going to the Impala pumps and alleviate flooding as well on Four Corners. The project itself is tied in with an additional project, as you all know, the East Loop that'll be traversing through this area. Due to the East Loop improvement being programmed sooner than what it was originally scheduled for, we're coming to you as well with a redesign for the Impala pumps. By the redesign of the East Loop, we're allowed, or it's going to give us some additional property so we can increase the size of the Impala pump area. So the original Impala pump design that we had will be redesigned to give us additional capacity, since we have more area for pumps and larger diameter pipes now that East Loop will be relocated. Originally, the East Loop relocation was programmed for several years from now. So when we were doing the design, we were not contemplating having the ability to resize these pipes. Now that the East Loop project got front-tracked and it's being completed sooner, we opted that it would be a great opportunity right now and redesigning, even though we already had a design for it, it's redesigning this Impala pump area to have additional capacity than what we had originally envisioned. This particular project itself, aside from the detention pond capabilities, it does allow for additional future recreational areas throughout the perimeter of this project, like many of our detention ponds. We can definitely add walking trails and bird watching areas. Here's an example of some of the ponds that we've designed with wetland areas and then the transition areas as we get to our detention area. And on the surface side, we've incorporated walking trails. This particular plan currently is just for the detention and the Impala pump redesign. We would have to look for additional sources of funding for any other improvements or amenities that we choose that are not related to the detention of this project. If y'all have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them at this time.
Do you have any questions? Okay. Do you have any motions on the item?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, consideration and action to approve a professional services agreement with Cyrus 9 Solutions to redesign, perform cleanup and consolidation into a modernized centralized systems infrastructure in an amount not to exceed $523,400 as budgeted.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Jorge Cardenas. I am the Enterprise Application Director. Today, I'm here to seeking approval for the following proposal. As many of you know, and for those who don't know, the IT infrastructure is mainly composed of two main parts, right? The network and the systems. So about 3 months ago, we came here asking approval for, start working on the first part, which is the network. Today, I'm here to, present the proposal to work on the second part, which are the systems. So currently, we have our environment, most of our on-premise servers are end of life. We are paying extra to keep them alive. We pay in professional service to, update them and things like that. And we actually received a proposal of do a one-for-one replacement. And it came out around $900,000. So to replace, currently we have 23 on-prem servers and about 200 virtual machines that, consider servers, but virtually. So the solution here, like I said, it will be pretty much to consolidate those virtual machines. And the reason we want to consolidate them is to reduce that cost. So like I stated, the quote we received was $900,000. Usually to upgrade or to replace a server is between $3,000 to $5,000. So in this case, they came back with a $900,000 quote. So about $4,000 per server. So the plan is to reduce that to less than 50 to reduce that amount, right? So the next one, once we reduce that, we will work on upgrading those servers to the latest version. We have a lot of them that are already, reached the end of life. The third one is to reconfigure our Active Directory and our O365. Originally, when it was implemented, there are some areas of improvement that are very critical, and I would like to attack those first, so that the users can actually see an improvement in their experience. Example, receiving emails. Sometimes emails, are slow to get in. You have a delay on things like that, or creating accounts and all that. And also retire on-premise Exchange server. That one, for some reason was left here when we migrated to the O365. So that one has to be retired, and we have to move completely to the cloud where we are paying for the O365. And the other one, like I said, is patching. Patching goes hand in hand with our last proposal for cybersecurity, is to actually take a look at those servers that we have, patch them, upgrade them, and then at the end, get ready to move everything to the cloud and get rid of all the on-prem equipment in the long term, reduce the risk of vulnerabilities, and also not having to buy equipment every 3 to 5 years. So again, the benefit, significant savings, improve customer experience, and reduce the cyber vulnerabilities. The amount is $523,400, and the contract with the professional service will be for 12 months. I think that's enough time for us to get that done and get it done right, so that we can migrate our current environment to the cloud.
Do we have any questions?
Just one comment and I love slides like this. The one thing I would add to that, aside from just mentioning significant financial savings, I'd include some figures to show what type of savings we'd be looking at on an annual basis versus what the one-time cost is.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item, we have consideration and action to approve task order number 6 to Garver LLC for construction management services for the parking lot extension project for an amount not to exceed 205,800 as budgeted.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Francisco Partida, Deputy Director of Development Security at the Brownsville Airport. Here to present on the construction management services for task order number 6 to Garver LLC, one of our on-calls. This is for the parking lot expansion project that was awarded at the beginning of the month. They've been our on-call since 2018. They managed the terminal project. They completed the parking lot design, and there are not to exceed costs included in the language budgeted through the terminal project funding funds, and it includes the construction administration, coordination, inspections, test oversight, and project closeout, and punch list items, warranty items with the general contractor.
And what did we approve a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, November 2nd, in the first meeting of the month, it was awarded 1.8 to Klosner and Sons of Westlaco. And that contract is still being negotiated due to some supply chain language that they want to include. And the city might be agreeable to it. We just had a meeting last week.
So that was for the actual construction of the parking lot?
That is for the actual construction, 1.8, and this is for 205 for construction management services, about 11% of the total cost, which is very reasonable in this case.
Once this is done, especially with our long-range plans for the airport to add an additional airline, how much capacity is this going to give us, and what's that going to look like as far as meeting our needs?
It's double the capacity. We have 188 spaces right now. We're adding another 188. We are adding the infrastructure for electric chargers for vehicles. That was one of the constraints on the RFP for the parking lot. So we had kind of to piecemeal it because supply chain issues and the fluctuating price on those units. So what Klosner and Sons are going to do is all the flat work, the pavement, running the conduits, preparing the electric work, and we need the market to stabilize, and then we can go in and put in this electric chargers.
And do we anticipate outgrowing this in the next several years if we bring in an additional airline?
It will satisfy the next 5 years.
Okay.
At least the next 5 years.
Hey, do we have any additional questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have a question. You said that you're still working on the contract for the building of it.
Yes, sir.
Is that something that can happen with this as well, or is this a price that's going to stick?
This is a fixed price because they are on call. This is our 4th year with this company. The prices are fixed and the commission doesn't have to worry about it.
You're talking about an 11%. If that price were to vary up or down, would that move with it?
No, this is based on service hours and inspections and testing. So it will be, unless the project has a
delay,
a big runoff, then we would bring it to commission.
Would we have the construction company on the hook for that, or would that be on the city?
Yes, through liquidated damages. Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's it for me.
All right, we did have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, we have board appointments. Consideration and action on resolution number 2022-068 to appoint or reappoint a board member to the Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors.
I believe that's my appointment. Oh, wait, no, this is Cameron Appraisal? This is.
It's also yours, I believe,
Well,
Mayor.
It mentioned mayoral appointment on the packet, but as you can see, he was appointed by Commissioner Galansky. So I mean, if Mr. Tipton, Nora, did you check? Okay.
I'm sorry. I did contact Mr. Timpton and he wishes to continue serving on the board.
Well, I wish to nominate
I'll
Mr.
second.
Jim Tipton.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Item number 2, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-079 to appoint one member to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee.
Mayor, City Commissioners, we have a member that resigned, and it was the mayor's appointee to the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. And so as we continue to work on the traffic impact fee, we would like to get that replaced. And so, Mayor,
Yes, Joel, actually, you gave me plenty of time to come up with somebody. I did have somebody in mind. However, my understanding is that they must all live within the city limits. So I need to come back on that one.
we'll
All
come
right,
back.
sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one ETJ.
I know that, but I don't know whether everybody here is.
Do they all have to live in the city limits, Counselor?
You're both correct. One has to be in the ETJ, the rest have to be in the city limits. But I think the issue is we don't know which one might be not in the ETJ.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I just want to confirm. Thanks.
Okay.
We can just go ahead and table that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? All right, be tabled. Thank you.
Mayor, it is now 6:23. If you'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a
Second.
second? Motion and a second to go into executive session. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, we'll be in executive session. Thank you.
The following items will be considered during executive session. Item number 1, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney related to legal matters concerning a disagreement for 120 South Vermilion Avenue, Brownsville, Texas, with Astria, Inc. Item number 2, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney related to legal matters concerning Brownsville Sports Park event license and promotion agreements with Sports Marketing Monterrey Group. Item number 3, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney in Sections 551.072, real property related to potential acquisition, exchange, lease, valuation, sale, or purchase of real property described as parcels 1 through 4, being portions of acres of land out of Amigo Land, Section 1, Unit C. Item number 4, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Sections 551.072, real property related to potential exchange, lease, valuation, sale, or purchase of real property generally located along East-South Rio Grande River, north of Power Plant Drive, Brownsville, Texas. Item number 5, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney related to legal issues regarding the collective bargaining agreement with police. Item number 6, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, and 551.074, personnel matters related to various legal issues regarding personnel matters. Item number 7, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, and 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations related to Project Prime. Item number 8, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Texas 551.071, consultation with attorney related to legal issues regarding the Tenasca audit conducted by Carl Riggs and Ingram.
No one.
Not even Roy.
Yeah, just.
It is 8:02. Possible action on any items as discussed in executive session. Item number one, consideration and action, if any, regarding a lease agreement for 120 South Vermillion Avenue, Brownsville, Texas, with Astria, including but not limited to pursuing any breach of contract claims, collections, and any other rights or remedies allowed by law or in equity.
We have any motions?
Move to proceed as discussed in executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion
Me.
passes.
Nay.
We have two nays. And Commissioner Gowan, were you? Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Item number two, consideration and action, if any, regarding the Brownsville Sports Park event license and promotion agreements with Sports Marketing Monterrey Group, including but not limited to pursuing any breach of contract, claims, collections, and any other rights or remedies allowed by law or in equity.
Mayor and Commissioners, my recommendation that there's no action needed for this item at this time.
Okay, very good. Next item.
Item number three, consideration and action, if any, regarding the exchange, lease, valuation, sale, or purchase of real property to the state of Texas, acting by and through the Texas Facilities Commission, a state agency generally located along east-south Rio Grande River, north of Power Plant Drive, Brownsville, Texas.
Do we have any motions?
Move to proceed as discussed in executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? I'll be nay.
Nay.
Commissioner Gowan?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Then adjourn. Thank you.
It is 8:04, meeting has ended.